So one of the most common questions we get asked is, what's the difference between a covenant, a deed of covenant, and an easement? So let's go through each one. A covenant can normally be found in a deed. A deed is from the land registry, which gives the title, who owns the property. Are there any obligations or restrictions in the property? So actually what it shows like this is an official copy of the register that we obtained from the land registry for you. And we do this on a purchase right at the very beginning, and it avoids any delay from waiting for this from the seller's solicitors. So as soon as we get this for you, we'll have a look through, and we see if there's any covenants, which are restrictions or obligations within the title. So a covenant is attaches to the land, not to the individual. So when you buy the land, you actually buy the covenant. So you actually buy the obligation or the restriction. The obligation could be, for example, that you keep certain parts of the property in a certain use. Or a restriction could be that you can't build, for example, an office or a farm. And these things go back years, so some of the things are quite unusual, the restrictions, like you can't own a pub in the garden. So some of the quite unusual things, but let's not worry about that. So a covenant is an obligation or a restriction. It only becomes very clear when you read it. Now, what's the difference between a covenant and a deed of covenant? So now a deed of covenant only applies to if you're buying a leasehold, for example, like an apartment or so forth. So don't get worried too much. A deed of covenant, really, what it is, it's an extension of a covenant. A deed of covenant means if you're buying a property, you have to enter into a deed of covenant, which means you enter a deed of covenant with the landlord, which is the actual freeholder, and you say to the landlord, I agree, the very obligations are on here, that I will carry on with those obligations. And you actually need those. The landlord will need you to sign that document in order to purchase the property. Okay, that's the difference between a covenant and a deed of covenant. The other thing that clients get confused on is what is an easement. Again, that's normally found in the register and any documents attaching to the register. Okay, so again, we'll send you this when you actually get your papers. And we'll send you this at the final report stage. That's once we receive all the papers in for you and we report to you as to what's the legal title on the property. Okay, so don't worry too much. But an easement is really a right of way or some sort of access over the land. So an easement, for example, could be an easement for you to have access to your driveway or access to your garden. Or access to light, access to electricity, access to gas and water pipes and stuff. So an easement is really an access. And again, there should be in your documents. Now there's either what's called an express easement, where it's actually stated in the documents, or if it's not stated in the documents, so don't worry too much, because you could have an implied easement. If you haven't got that, then don't worry too much either, because we can actually organise insurance for you. So it's actually very specialist insurance companies in the industry now. We're very lucky in that you can actually obtain an insurance policy for any risk of lack of the easements. So if something goes wrong in the future for lack of easement, you can still buy, but you get covered with insurance.